Hey, what's up, guys? Schizomanic here. We're gonna talk about subs and dubs again. Yes, we're doing it again. You would think after all these years of internet anime community shit, you get tired of the conversation. Nah, it never gets old. So, subs and dubs. Why am I bringing us up again? Why are we having this conversation? As a lot of people have probably noticed that anime in its gain of popularity, the sub and dub argument is something that never truly goes away. It just kind of hides in the background in the little image boards and the messaging boards and in YouTube comments where it's like, you still get the comments on the dub videos, why does Naruto sound like a whiny little kid? They picked a bad voice actor for Gohan and Kai. What did they do to Deco? What did they do to Deco? What did they do to Deku in My Hero Academia? Excuse me, sir. It's called Boku no Hero Academia. Eat a dick, faggot. It's fucking stupid. Anyways, the reason why I want to bring it up because I feel like the argument really hasn't changed from what it really should be about now. Because I think granted, we still don't. Not every dub is a fucking 10 out of 10, but we're getting consistently better dubs from better voice actors who actually know what the fuck they're doing. The problem for me right now, and considering all, because one of the problems with dubs is the fact that they also came out so late. Funimation, at least, has really been pushing in these last few years to change all that shit to the point now where we're getting dubs on the same day we get the Japanese release. I mean, Attack on Titan dub is on the same episode the Japanese is on right now. Same thing for My Hero Academia. We've gotten to the point where we have simuldubs, where we were having simuldubs before, where they're coming out like the episode was like a week late. Now it's like, oh no, it's maybe like an hour or so, and you're like, how? How are you able to do this, you monsters? And that's the cool thing. It's like we're fixing some of the problems between dubs and subs slowly but surely. We're getting them out at a faster rate. There's not too much lag time between when the dub releases and the sub is out. It's great, but people still say they like subs over dubs, and I think the reasoning behind it isn't even that the voice actors are bad. I think what it really comes down to is the writing and the conveyance of characters. Because no matter what you do, the sub version is going to be out, whether it's a minute or 2 minutes or a second or a millisecond before the dub version. And people watch the sub version first, that automatically puts a standard on what that episode and what those characters act like. The Japanese set the precedent for those characters and their personalities. Therefore, when the dub, whoever's dubbing gets their hands on it, they automatically have to deal with a stigma of not only representing the character, but representing it at least as good or around the same tier as the Japanese. And a lot of dubs don't really do that. But I don't think it's necessarily the voice actor's fault. I think it kind of boils down to translation and writing. To give you an example, remember when Japanese sentences aren't structured the same way as American sentences. When people say sentences in Japanese, the end of the sentence comes at the beginning of the statement. Meaning, and granted, because of the animation not being as fluid for anime, you can get away with the mouth flap situation. But because of that, sometimes they're saying characters' names at the beginning of the damn sentence, even though it's coming at the end of the sentence, and the dub version doesn't do that. So you're thinking, like, I'm trying to think of a good Japanese name. Makia-kun. Like, they say Makia-kun, which that's still a fucking argument in itself. The stupid ass, should we use kun or chan? Which, depending on that one, I don't really get, because it's that, to me, that's on that weeaboo shit. That's that fucking, and when I say weeaboo shit, I mean like that stupid saying chan and kun after people's names, because that's how it happens in Japan. But the only reason why they're doing that is because it means different things in Japanese. Like, I think kun is more familiar, whereas Chan and San is more. Well, San I think is more formal. And I think that's part of it. And some people do it because of the mouth flap situation. Because some anime are better at doing facial animations than others, sometimes you really got to put a kun or a chan in there, which gets into the writing issue. Saying a sentence in Japanese and saying a sentence in English is not necessarily going to amount to the same amount of words. And so the Americans have the disadvantage of having to figure out a way to either extend or shorten the sentence to fit the Japanese mouth flaps. And that creates problems. That's why you'll have sometimes the Japanese version saying this long, elaborate sentence that makes perfect sense, and the American version is like a short, dumbed down version of it. Not because they couldn't do it. I mean, not because they didn't want to put it in there, but because, oh, well, the mouth flaps take too long, and by the time I get halfway through the sentence, that part of the scene is over. So what do? I got to shorten the lyrics, the conversation, the dialogue. The other problem is that certain voice actors just can't hit the same heights. I mean, I think the best example for this one is probably Luffy's voice actress, Colleen Clinkenbeard in English, who does a really good job at Luffy. But you're comparing her to, and I don't remember Luffy's Japanese voice actress's name, but I do remember that she is older and she has been voicing characters way longer, especially boys. Remember, she's most well known. She might be known for Luffy, but she's just as well known for voicing fucking Krillin. And it's fucking from Dragon Ball Z. And she's probably been doing that at least. So she's been voicing two popular Shonen Jump characters for probably decades at this point. Whereas Colleen, for the most people who knew her as voicing older women characters. She didn't start voicing boys until like later on. And then Luffy, I think, was her first real consistent boy voice. It's like, it's not that Colleen doesn't do a good job. It's that Colleen can't hit the same heights as her counterpart, because her counterpart has more experience and her counterpart's been doing boy voices longer. That doesn't discredit Colleen in any way, but that just becomes an issue in itself. It's like, shit, there's only so much you can do. I think Colleen's weakest part is probably when she does screaming sequences, for obvious reasons, because you can't really tell that Luffy's being voiced by a girl until the fights. It's usually around the fights when he's screaming like for a long period of time, the pitch gets a little bit too high, and you're like, oh, that's why. Because he is being voiced by a girl. That's when you can fucking tell. Getting back to the writing argument, though, not only is it a problem with translation, but it also comes down to conveyance. I think the best example of this recently I've seen is probably in Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid's dub. If anyone's watched that series, you know there's a big-breasted, blonde dragon girl known as Lukoa. In the Japanese version, when you hear Lukoa's voice, she is portrayed more as a kind of cute, sexy older sister, but more like motherly. Like, her voice doesn't come off as this like sexualized, I want some hot dog between my breasts type of chick. The dub version decided to go more into a blonde, more of the blonde sexy girl type. And they're both still saying the same things. The lines are pretty close and they're still having the same conveyance. But it's just that change of inflection because, and this is an argument that always goes into a lot of the dubs where like people go, oh, you have to put your own spin on the character. You can't do the same exact style as the Japanese one because sometimes the American actors need to put a different spin on it. It's not that they're changing the character. They're just changing the way they portray the character. And sometimes it fucking doesn't work out. It's not the writing, it's not the direction, it's literally just the way the character was portrayed in English that'll completely ruin it for people. It's one of the reasons why I don't like Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid's dub. Not because the voice acting's bad, but just because I don't care for certain things. Like, for example, hell, in My Hero Academia, I'm not a fan of Uraraka's voice. Not because I don't like Lucy Christian, I just don't think she was a good choice for Uraraka. I think there were other girls that could have represented her better. That doesn't mean the fucking dub is bad though, cause my God, you got Yusuke Urameshi voicing motherfuckers in this. Tokiyami's voice is badass. Bakugo's is fine. Todoroki, love him. And then that's what it boils down to. You have different portrayals for different characters. That's why you have certain dub fans who prefer certain things in dub versus other things in sub. One Piece for me being the most controversial because One Piece is an example of what happens when you have a fucked up translation or you do a direct translation, which is another thing people have issues with. Oh, they changed the way a character says certain lines, and they do this primarily just for a different sense of conveyance, even though it's saying the same thing. I'm on two sides of the coins with this one because sometimes it pisses me off, like it does. For example, Usopp versus Perona in One Piece. I hate the way that the end of that fight is handled because they did some slight ad-libbing and it doesn't sound as cool to me. And then you have things like fucking I'm trying to think of another, or in My Hero Academia, there's certain lines that Deku screams, primarily his smash attacks in like the first season, that I don't like the way they conveyed it in English. And then you have situations where they do direct translations, which are also in One Piece, where instead of saying out the attack names in French like Sanji's supposed to, he said it in fucking English, and you were like, I didn't want to see that. Or when they take jokes that are in English and just do them straight out, like how Sanji calls him a moss hair bastard. Doesn't work as well. But then you give me things like Davy Backfight arc, where you got fucking Usopp doing his best Don King impression in English, and that shit was gold. Him, I swear, Sunny Strait and Colleen killed me on that. That shit was funny as fuck. But that's only because they changed the conveyance of that scene in English, which you wouldn't get in Japanese. And the reason why, but the problem is that it's hard for dubs to overtake the Japanese version for certain shows because you have to be consistently that good. One Piece, I fluctuate back and forth with all the goddamn time. I can watch it in Japanese and I can watch it in English, but in certain sequences I prefer the Japanese version, in certain sequences I prefer the English dub version. It really just depends on the characters. And I think then the biggest problem is also, like I used to say in my other videos on this topic, it's also the fact that you speak English and you're aware of what different inflections and shit mean in English. You can catch all the sort of nuances you can't catch in Japanese. Japanese just needs to sound okay consistently, and you're good. I think as I said, I think there's only a few anime I can even name that had bad Japanese voice acting in it, and the only reason I was able to tell is only because of the delivery. For example, Skit Dance has a character who is voiced in there that gives a really monotone performance. But since most girls talk in like this high-pitched Japanese squeak voice, half the time you can't tell if they're being disingenuous or not. It just, all they have to do is make it seem like they're being genuine. That's not to discredit the Japanese voice actors and actresses. That's just a thought and an opinion. I think the biggest issue now is the writing. What do I keep and what do I get rid of, and how do I change it so it makes sense, but it fits the mouth flaps and it still conveys the same thought process? Like, it's hard. And if you're a purist and someone who likes the way it was delivered in Japanese, it makes the dub really hard to get into. Like Boku no Hero, I think has overall a good dub. I enjoy the dub, but there are certain things that bug me that they took into a different direction. For example, in the first season, when Ida does that, I don't know if it's iconic, but I find it pretty iconic, when he screams, realizing Uraraka and Midoriya have won the heroes versus villain training exercise. In the Japanese version, he screams as long as "No!" In the English version, he's just like, "What? It can't be!" Like, and I get it. It's just a different conveyance. But then you have scenes in English, like one of the recent episodes of season 2, where he does that cool, reciprocal burst move, and he does that cool line where he turns around and he's like, what does he say? He goes, I warned you, Midoriya, that I would challenge you too. Like, he says something to that effect, and it sounds way cooler in the dub version. But that's also because Ida's voice is cool as fuck in the dub version. That's the problem we're at right now. And the question isn't really and I think that's the problem dubs are always going to be stuck in. Because the Japanese is setting the precedent, it's almost impossible for you to consistently beat them out. The advantage you have now is that not as many people are as anal about the dubs because the dubs have gotten better in quality and they come out more consistently. It's an enjoyable thing to watch and have fun with. I don't know. It's just something I wanted to bring up. I don't think the question is that you have bad voice actors or actresses, or they're not, or they're butchering the source material. I think it's just an issue of how do you handle the writing? Do you do direct translation or do you ad lib? And if you do ad lib, how much ad lib can you do? Because sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Like in the Davy Back fight, I think it completely worked. Miss Kobayashi and the Dragon Maid, not so much. Or especially the animes that do the accents. Like Infinite Stratos. Infinite Stratos' dub gets a lot of shit because Infinite Stratos' dub in Japanese, they're either not doing... Either they don't do the various different countries, or you can't tell because it's in Japanese. Whereas in English, you can clearly tell they're all putting on accents, and people were like, I don't want to see this shit. I don't want to deal with this shit. But see, then that's artistic choice. It's like, you say the character's from France and he doesn't have a French accent. It's kind of weird. Why even say they're from France? It just seems weird. It also makes your dub more diverse, and it makes it feel different compared to the Japanese. Because I actually like the Infinite Stratos dub, even though I think the dub isn't really as consistent, because they have to pick and choose which accents to do. For example, you had characters from, what was it, Britain, France, China, and then from Japan, but they didn't do any changes to the Chinese or the Japanese characters. Which, I mean, hell, even Persona 5 currently, as I'm playing, it has that fucking problem. Where they make references to how, you know, characters Japanese isn't that good, but it's the dub, so they're speaking English, so the sentence doesn't make sense in the context. And so you bring up the question, should you bring it up or no? I don't know. It's a lot of different decisions, and it's a kind of a crapshoot in certain situations. But the advantage is that because we still have the Japanese versions, and most dub companies, minus a few exceptions, have learned, always put the Japanese audio track on there too, you don't have to choose. Because sometimes you might like watching certain sequences in English, and sometimes you don't. But you have the option to pick now. And because the dub is at least good, if nothing else, you're not going to have a bad time with the show. Hell, you might even like certain shows more in English. I don't know, just a discussion topic. Please leave your thoughts and comments about it in the comment section below. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys watching and checking out the video. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. Tell me what you guys think. Any suggestions or requests for more discussion topics, let me know. Anyways, this has been Schizomanic. Lives a game, play to win, and I will catch you guys later.